Good day, Dragon Slayers. So, it is one day prior to the second anniversary of the Israeli Holocaust. And Mike, I'm sure you may want to have some comment about that. We're bringing this to you I'm sorry, guys. We are bringing you this today in hopes that you'll support us by taking a look at our books, Dragon Slaying and Michael's The Rainbow Covenant. Well, Mike, let's start it off. I am dismayed that we're now into the second anniversary of the catastrophe in Israel provoked by Hamas. And if anything, it seems like the epidemic of anti-Semitism continues to grow. Why is that?
Well, ignorance, especially ignorance on the part of the Semites. The Jews we aren't doing a good job understanding what we've got. We're not doing a good job in knowing who we are and what we are in the world.
Please elaborate. Help me with that.
Well, the Jews are set up as a people to prove the existence of the Almighty to all mankind. You can look at existence and you can figure out, well, is it all by accident or was it created? And the Jews are the deity's thumb on the scales that prove that it's no accident. The prophecies that have been fulfilled, the role of the Jews in history, the various proofs, like for ages, the Jews were mocked for our conception of creation ex nihilo, of yesh ma'ayin, of something that, how dare people come up with a preposterous proposition that the universe was created out of nothing. How do you get something from nothing? But that's been the argument all along, and subsequently, just in our just recently in 48, 49, 1950, we found the background radiation of what was initially derisively called the Big Bang. Now that's the name of it, the Big Bang, but of creation of the universe out of nothing. And that's been the big argument. That's one of the things. But also you have the fulfillment of the promises that the Jews would be a kingdom of priests, that we would be some of the aristocrats of the human race, that we'd be very put upon. To me, the attack on that October 7th and Simchas Torah, one of the holiday that the Hamas attacked, and it was a horrible attack. It was lynching. It was cutting women's body. It was mayhem, cutting women to bits, not just raping them, but just horrible, horrible things, and taking Jewish babies and bashing their brains out, and all the Nazi-like things from people who really, really hate Jews. And this happened, and we see this happening, and some of this stuff is to keep the Jews in the forefront of the world's attention. Leave it to an unredeemed human race to turn this into anti-Semitism. There was a natural, an immediate military response. We're dealing with a Gaza, this huge area the size of several Manhattans, that has been fortified to the max. There's never been anything like this in human history, of this kind of fortification of supposed civilian settlements. But the civilians are all indoctrinated, almost all indoctrinated, like Hitler Youth. They make the Hitler Youth look tame, because the Hitler Youth didn't send 4 and 5-year-olds out to kill, to to sacrifice them. But the enemies of the Jews on this occasion, Hamas and and all the people who support Hamas have no particular problem, it seems, with sending kids out to kill and be killed because the enemy is so substantial, and all on the basis of the risible, ridiculous proposition that this little land of Israel, this New Jersey-sized piece of real estate, including all of the much vaunted occupied territories, that makes it sound like Alaska, or the Canadian Northwest Territories, this pimple on the planet, is the repository of all the hopes and dreams of a very, very fast-growing, artificially sustained, artificially generated set of Arab peoples, very disparate, united in only one thing, in the belief that the Jews screwed them, the Jews stole their land. Meanwhile, the Arab countries, the 22 countries of the Arab League, and now most of the leading Muslim countries, including Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia, are all insistent that Israel must be the place where this burgeoning population is accommodated. It sounds so simple. Just take care of these poor suffering Palestinians, but put them on your own land, have them live right next to you. And then we discover that, well, no, if we do that, and we were living right next to them. I was actually in Gaza years ago in one of the kibbutzim that was overrun, and it wasn't much of a place, but it was paradise compared to Gaza. But that's because the whole point of the Palestinian existence is to make these people who call themselves Palestinians. The name comes from the name, of the Philistines, the ancient Philistines. It used to be an insult to call somebody a Philistine. In Arabic and Hebrew, it's Philistin. It used to. The Philistines are not well regarded by history, and certainly not by the Bible. They were, these cruel, awful, idolatrous, awful people, and these people have attached their name to them. The whole myth of Palestinianism is there. It's risible, it's laughable, but the world responds to this with enthusiasm. And, people proudly say, can you imagine years ago somebody saying, well, I'm pro-Philistine. I'm pro the people that your King David and that Samson scourged. These awful people in history. I have here a New Yorker article, a long article. We mentioned it briefly before, and it talks about anti-Semitism, and it talks about the origins of anti-Semitism, and they root it in Christianity, which is completely nuts. This is after the Jews have been exiled from our land twice.
I'd like you to pause there, though. As you and I both know, where I grew up in the shadow of the Shrine of the Little Flower, Father Charles Francis Coughlin did promulgate the notion that the Jews killed our Lord.
That's one of the anti-Semitisms.
No, but I mean, there were elements of it there, and I guess the other thing I found troublesome is how many Jews, as represented by the media and represented by the academy, universities, were complicit in all of this. They allowed it to happen. They championed the terror out of ignorance, or out of what motivation? Terribly disappointing. I wasn't disappointed by the UN. What the UN did was quite predictable. In fact, I think the UN is a blemish on us right now. Uh, Neither the United States nor Israel is welcome there. But go ahead. How do you explain that the Jews were complicit in all of this?
Well, I mean, the UN represents the human race, and the UN gives us a photo, a snapshot of the human race, which is, which Mark Twain calls the damned human race, a very unredeemed human race. Um, I was saying that the Jews don't know who and what we are. They believe that we're failing in our obligation to extend the hand of friendship to the Arab world and these mostly pretty poor, pretty pretty put upon people who've been screwed over by their brethren.
Well, I've argued that over the past 50 years, we have extended our hand only to find our hand amputated.
It doesn't pay. Well, we have commandments. At this time of year, we have Sukkot coming up tonight, the holiday of Tabernacles, which is the big harvest festival is coming up tonight. We just went through Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. We went through the first day of the seventh month, Rosh Hashanah, which is the new year. And we do these special readings, anciently promulgated. I mean, it's not just Moses, but the schedule of readings was promulgated thousands and thousands of years ago. And the readings are vivid. We're towards the end of Deuteronomy, and Moses is telling people, telling us, giving us his last messages, his last marching orders are from Moses to us, the people of Israel, the Jews, as do what I've told you. And one of the major things has been you remove the foreign nationals from this land that you are about to take. You take this. It's just a little pocket of God's earth, the land of Israel, very small country. But this is going to be yours, and your obligation is to remove, get rid of the foreign nationals here who are unsympathetic to you, who are going to fight with you, and two, you shall inherit. The word is a really interesting word, yerash, and it means both to inherit and to disinherit. And when you inherit a land, it means you or anything, you disinherit any other claimants for it. So we've got these marching orders that are very distinct, and the instruction is, this is my gift, God's gift to you, the Jews, this New Jersey-sized area. I found in a collection of never to be adequately damned Father Coughlin's sermons an argument from Cicero, another never to be adequately damned Roman anti-Semite, fellow lawyer, who was going on about the God of Israel. Cicero says this thousands and thousands of years ago, that the God of the Jews must be only a very little, weak God, because all he could arrange for his chosen people is his little dinky, insignificant land on the far side of the Mediterranean. And even Coughlin thought that was funny. But on this one little land, surrounded by the Arabs, the Arab nations, the Muslim nations, incredibly vast, incredibly underpopulated holdings, that land is supposed to be ours, the Jewish people's. And the obligation isn't just to settle the land, but it's to remove other people who don't want you there, all subject to their attitude towards the Jews. If they abide by the seven Noahide laws, if they abide by the Noahide laws, the basic laws of human decency, and if they grant that this is the system, that this is the divine system, that God has given this little bit of land to the Jewish people in the same way that the French have France, or the Germans have Germany, or Americans have America, um, then they're welcome. They're welcome to stay. But if they can't abide there, if they insist that this land is really theirs, which is historically preposterous, they got to go. And there's a lot of world that is ready and waiting. Well, that's ready for them, but the Arabs keep them out.
Well, it's also, as Moses conveyed it, that's part of our covenant. It's a contractual obligation
It is.
to preserve the land.
Yes, yeah. We pray that God will remember the land. You know, they insist that they were all over the land, that this land is their land, and the record is very clear that it wasn't anything like that. It was a horrible, howling wasteland. Um, I mean, we had Mark Twain, for instance, and other visitors talked about how empty it was. These people came later, but not just that. One of the things that irks me most about this is that the King of the universe himself, Moses, through Moses, there's the, the cold, daring prediction that when the Jews are not in the land, that the land will be bereft. The land will have its Sabbath. It will rest all that time. And that's what happened. When the Jews were removed, and we were exiled. I mean, it was an extremely violent removal. The Jews have been trying to live on that land for thousands of years, and the world has made it extremely, they've done it, they've driven us off. But, and that's through history, through immigration laws and, naval blockades and the like. But when the Jews weren't there, that land was bereft. There was never any kind of thriving or populous Palestinian or Arab or Turkish or Roman or other presence there. Nobody else could make that land work. It was only the Jews who have an affinity, a love for the land, and an affinity for it, and the resources of a world people to subsidize it. I mean, the story of Zionism is so interesting that you zealous, fanatic people come to the land, Jews come to the land of Israel, and occasionally they get some help from the diaspora, and they get the talents of the diaspora. Some guy from Detroit came out and found out that the sand there was some sand that made really good glass. So they started a glass industry. We've had military men who came. We've had, all kinds of manufacturers and chemists and the like, who came and could make that land sing, that literally make the desert flower.
Michael, let me interrupt this just for a second because I was curious about something. Since you and I have been doing this, I have been inspired, actually awed by your adherence to your faith, that you make an effort to practice your faith on a daily basis. You and I are both people of discipline, but part of your discipline is to embrace your faith as a totality. And I'm curious, how many devout Jews share our sentiments about the place of Israel as opposed to what I might refer as the Jews that are still in a spiritual diaspora, the agnostic Jews that adhere to some of the cultural anchors of Judaism, but would not consider themselves devout Jews or even observant.
Well, we've got a lot of Jews in Israel who are leaving Israel. They and I've run into such folks. One little Israeli soldier I met last time I was there, who, a tough little guy, and he served, and he wanted to move to Spain or Portugal because he had, as a descendant of those who had been the Jews who'd been thrown out of Spain or Portugal, um, he had the right to settle. He wanted to be part of a normal country. Um, on the other hand, you have all these Jews with the idea that they are living in uh, holy times, and they don't leave. They're there, and this is where they want to be. They've plated their trough. Uh, I saw a lady I knew was just quoted in the New York Times. Daniela Weiss was saying that this attack on Simchas Torah, the October 7th, 2 years ago, was uh, a, a, an act to be, well, how do you put it? It was foreordained. It was holy. It was in the context of holiness to bring the Jews back to where we're supposed to be, which is um, a believing people who have certain marching orders, including bringing all humanity to the worship of the one and the only God. Most Jews are not very religious. I mean, they do not start the day with a prayer. When I get out of bed, before I get out of bed every morning, like all religious Jews, I say, "Thank you for returning my soul to my body. Moda ni lefanecha." You are very faithful. The day starts with that. The day ends with the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. The, the day is full of things to make us God conscious. And most Jews live without that consciousness. And it doesn't make them less members of the people of Israel. It just, but it keeps them away from a lot of the benefits of being part of the people of priests. Um, but still, you have the Richard Feynmans and the Google guys, the Larry Ellison and the Oracle guys, and the um, Larry. You know, you get genius, because that's what the Jews are supposed to. I mean, that's part of the brand. We're supposed to produce some of the world's leading dreamers, the world's leading poets, um, and the world's leading brains. Um, I mean, and that is part of the proof, again, of God in the world, that He is, that He's created this people out of, this vagabond tribes. Um, so how many are plugged in? There's always a righteous remnant, Tommy, um, and people come back all the time. You never know. You have a lot of end of life teshuva, or teshuva means to return. But I mean, I started out as an atheist, an agnostic, then an atheist, and I came. I say there are 70. We say there are 70 hooks to what I call the Hebrew Revolution, and this is the Hebrew Revolution is this movement of righteousness to elevate humanity and make us worth something in God's eyes. We're not just we're a species of ape, one of the 5 species of apes, but we're also a God blessed species of ape with enormous potential, and we can go a lot farther. And we can go a lot farther if we realize who and what we're supposed to be, which is creatures who are conscious of the creator of the universe, of the judge, the boss. And that this holiday is for the 70 nations of the world, but that is to say, all nations. Sukkot is to bring everybody to.
One one of the issues that provokes deep concern for me is I am deeply concerned among, as I look at our culture, of the level of despair in our culture right now, which I feel is not accidental. I believe it relates to the replacement of a belief in a Lord, whether Christian, Islamic, or Jewish, or whatever, and distracted by the immediacy of hedonism at the time. And there's just an enormous epidemic of psychiatric problems, depression, suicide, self-destructive behavior, just craziness, coincident to the absence of faith. And I am curious if at the time that you became recommitted or committed to Judaism, was that a time of wandering or despair for you?
Not at all. No, no, not at all. No, I didn't have anything like that. It was I just I read a few things, and I began to see that this was true, that the God of that the Jews really do have this remarkable role in history. You can't miss it. I mean, if you read history with any kind of unjaundiced, that's a horrible metaphor, unjaundiced eye, um, you see again and again they're Jews. T.S. Eliot wrote about he hated Jews. The Jews are underneath the lot. Any cool new venture, and you'll find that there are Jews involved in it. And why is that? Um, and they're an enormous force in history, not just another nation, not just a nation, that should be reckoned with, like the Germans or the Russians or something like that, but pervasive in the progress of mankind. Um, and and I saw that, and I saw something about this Torah that we got, this legacy of a people freed from Egypt, was a revolutionary legacy. We were all into revolution back when I was a kid, and revolution was hot. And this, the Moses revolution, you could call it, of leaving Egypt, of turning Egyptian society stagnant, rotten, oppressive, pathological Egyptian society, turning it upside down and taking a free people out of it, to a people who would never again be slaves. Jews make lousy slaves. Yeah, nobody loves freedom more than the Jewish people, and we've proved that again and again. Um, it, and in the face of enslaver after enslaver in every generation. But it was my interest has always been in what is true, um, and and when I saw there's enough there that indicates that this revolutionary movement from back when the pyramids were still new, um, has changed humanity radically. Uh, that it is a revolutionary movement that, by the way, it shares the dynamic of every other revolutionary movement. This is a revolutionary movement that has counter-revolutionary effects. Um, it has right-wing counter-revolutionaries. It has left-wing counter-revolutionaries. Now we seem to be beset by left-wing counter-revolutionaries, who feel that, this is horrible to think that the Jews are exceptional. Aren't all people exceptional? And of course, all people are made in the image.
Well, I, I think some of the great things that have emerged in America were likely inspired by that Mosaic Revolution.
No question about it.
War of Independence, certainly abolition, echoes of.
No question about it.
Yeah.
No, Lincoln told Harriet Beecher.
So the freeing of the slaves was.
Lincoln told Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, so you're the little lady who started this great war. And if you look at this, is Harriet Beecher Stowe was the daughter of a Protestant pastor, and she was just steeped in the Bible. And if you go through Uncle Tom's Cabin, you look hard and long for a reference to the New Testament. It's all Old Testament stuff again and again. She uses the Old Testament. So did Frederick Douglass, and so did Tom Paine in the Revolutionary War. I mean, he demolished the idea of the divine right of kings in at the start of the Revolutionary War. If anybody started the Revolutionary War, it was Tom Paine and common sense. And,
Well, the deistic movement in the Revolution, American Revolution, one of the core principles of it, which echoes today, is that our rights do not emerge from the state. They are a divine right that emerges from our compact with the Lord.
Pure Torah. It's pure Torah. It's one of the greatest things about America. I did see that Lincoln was taken to task for his Gettysburg Address by wise guys at the Chicago Tribune and these other leading newspapers who were saying, "Well, I didn't buy into this. What are you saying, that these black people are my equal? That we're all made equal? I didn't buy that. But Lincoln did." Yeah.
Well, you can easily dismiss something that's been written on the back of an envelope.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it was too short. Yeah. Well, there's a like I say, Tommy. We all have our own ways. We all get to go to hell our own way. You know, and a lot of these guys, like you putting me together with those black men, semi men, those mud people. How dare you, sir? But that's not Torah. That's the obverse of Torah.
The other bit of irony is that uh, even in latter days, for example, the revolution advanced by Thurgood Marshall was an alliance between Thurgood Marshall and African American visionaries, as well as a lot of Jewish guys. There were a lot of Jewish attorneys that was working with him.
The real founder of the NAACP was Julius Rosenwald of Sears, Sears Roebuck, and he funded it. He was their money man. But before that, you had Chaim Solomon, funding. He wasn't that rich, but he funded the revolution. He helped keep Washington going, not just at Valley Forge, but elsewhere. But the Jews, there were Jews who came out for these things and made them possible, and without which they wouldn't exist. I looking at history, seeing what I've seen, going to different estate sales where you go to the Jewish houses and the estate sales, and you see how remarkably different they are from the houses of even brilliant Gentiles, particularly the Irish, the Polish intellectuals, academics. But the Jews have a whole different set of cultural values, and it comes out that makes those are the best estate sales to go to.
So, what more about that? What do you notice? What's different?
We all have the same sort of books. When you go to the libraries in the Jewish estate sales, it's like you come to your own library or the library of your aunt or great aunt, your great uncle, and these curious intellectuals who just have the most Catholic in terms of universal taste, and they go everywhere. Um, but they don't go into, particularly, they don't go into some of the crazier um, cosmological ideas. In the Irish and the Polish intellectual houses, you'll get these alternative cosmologies involving different gods and universes and spells. You get works of magic a lot of the time.
So what you're telling me is that there are rarely great Jewish astrologers.
No, yeah. Well, no. I imagine there are, but you know, but well, it's just one of those things that people pick up. But no, I'm sure there are great Jewish astrologers. Shame on them. But that's not.
But I'm sure they did it well.
I'm sure they did it well. Oh yeah, and the Jewish yoga teachers are all over, and the Jewish Buddhists are. Buddhism is really big. We got more Buddhist gardens coming up around here, and everywhere.
But that's not necessarily mutually exclusive, is it? I mean, one could be a Jew and nonetheless follow the principles of Buddhism.
Well, I'm just back from recently. I was just back in the land of Buddhism, and
And you're here.
well, I'm back, and yeah, and I I kept looking for a there, and I didn't find a there. And all the Buddhists seem to be actually were Hindus. They were worshiping all these different Hindu gods. Even the Thai monarchs, the royal family in Thailand it's what they worship is the Hindu gods. You know, I've heard that Buddhism is can be extremely austere, and it has no spiritual beings at all. But I don't think that's commonly done. But no, I mean, a Jew can be a Christian, a Jew can be a Muslim, a Jew can be all these different things. It's a repudiation. It's a failure to appreciate what we've got. But I mean, Jews can go there. They're still Jews. Um, that's We're a people as well as a religious movement.
So as we bring this to a close, off camera, you were telling me about Sukkot, uh, this holiday of the harvest, uh, which to me was one of my favorites because it had all these fruits and vegetables that were associated with it. And we had the actual Sukkot itself. Could you elaborate a little bit more about that holiday?
I'm amazed that you did. I'm because my exposure to it was very negative at a conservative Jewish palace.
Why was it so negative?
Well, it as you know, it's a holiday of feasting, of drinking, of socializing. They took us little kids from Hebrew school into this forbidding shack with very high walls, and this is a sukkah. You should know something about this. We didn't even sit down in it, and it had the sakach, the natural roof, but we got no pleasure out of it at all, and that was their. That's how they exposed us to sukkahs. So we didn't know it as a holiday.
Somehow I different. Maybe it's because I went to Temple Bethel, which was reform. You know,
Well, okay. Well, I hope. Well, even a stop clock is right twice a day. Maybe they did Sukkot really well because it's an easy holiday to do well. It's a great, great holiday. I mean, you set up this structure, this booth, this lean-to, you know, somewhere outside, and you go and you eat and you drink and you sing and you party and you have people over, and they don't track mud into your house because they're outside, And
It's a bit of irony that when I was a late adolescent, I made my living as a wilderness survival guide, and I would build shelters, like perhaps inspired by the Sukkot.
well, yeah, I come from a long line of builders, and so building a sukkah is just like that's one of the things.
Well, what's key about that? I'm rather curious, but when we built these structures, we didn't use nails. We would use essentially line, uh, and, yeah, and we would anchor the pieces of wood to one another using that. And then, if you really wanted to refine it, you would put varnish over the rope or line that you were using.
Woo! Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yes, that's varnish. That takes it up a couple of levels. Yeah, but they're pretty great. It was a Gentile scholar, an old friend of mine. He wrote "Restoring Abrahamic Faith." He's a um, emeritus professor at North Carolina, and he shamed me into my first sukkah. And he was going, "Mike, it's so great. How can you not have a sukkah? You absolutely have to have a sukkah." He'd gotten infinite blessings out of it over the years. He'd also discovered the joys of Shabbos, which which a Gentile should keep in a somewhat different way than a Jew, but still, it can be a great, great day. But he shamed me into making a sukkah. My first sukkah, I made it in about 2 hours, and using some of your techniques and vines, and some grapevines that were lying around, and uh, and it and it turned out to be this spectacularly wonderful holiday. It's just great. There.
So, as an epilogue to this, what I commission you to do is you're building a sukkah right now in your backyard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, if you could, uh,
It'd be my pleasure to send. Yeah,
if you could link to Norman, our producer, some videos of your sukkah when it's finished, we could append it to our presentation today. Yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah, I'll send you pictures of last year's sukkah. I got it ready to go.
But what kind of produce do you put in your sukkah on it?
Well, no, you mostly evergreen boughs. A lot of the sunflowers that grew through the year, long, giant sunflower stalks. Um, and that's it. The yew is the best stuff. Oh yeah, some birch logs, which I keep around.
Well, somehow I remember the Hebrew name of some of the fruits and vegetables. What was esrod?
Oh, that's a little lemon. I just bought one today. Earlier today, I went and I got my little lemon, very expensive lemon, and
How is the esrod different from the lemons I pick up in Costco?
well, it's a citron, and it's a different species, but it belongs to the same family, and it's pretty close to a lemon. Let's face it. The weird thing, um, they um, they don't rot. I keep them. Sometimes I'll keep them after Sukkot, and they'll lie around, and they shrink, but they don't rot, and they eventually become like little nuts. You know, it's weird fruit. A lulav, the palm branch, and you take the palm branch for Pesach, and when it comes to getting rid of your Passover in the spring, when it comes to getting rid of um, your leaven products, your bread products in the spring, you kindle it with your palm branch left over from Sukkot to tie the holidays together. You have myrtle, which is a very sweet tasting, sweet smelling um, uh, bough, thick glossy leaves, and you take willow that has no scent, like right from a willow tree, which we have a lot of around here.
So Sukkot apparently is echoed in the Feast of Tabernacles.
Well, it is Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles is Sukkot. It's just a fancier name. They translate the Hebrew sukkah as tabernacle.
Got it. Well, you inspire me once again, and
Well, you like these pictures. I have a really cool sukkah that has a couple of entryways. So it's kind of an open sukkah. It's not like a claustrophobic booth, but it's more of a Le Corbusier or a Walter Gropius of a Frank Lloyd Wright of a sukkah.
so it compels me to visit you sometime next year to catch a Sukkot. Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, it'd be super.
All right. So your health is good?
Thank God.
Thank God. All right. Mine is emerging on spectacular now.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah,
All right.
really. All right, cousin. I look forward to an encore. Can we do an encore next week or not?
Yeah, yeah. In between, there are a couple of holy days, but mostly it's open.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, once again, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom.